Banks nationwide have a new image. Now you have a friend, your friendly banker. If the banks are so friendly, how come they chain down their bins? This is a funny Alan King quote, but it adequately depicts the sentiment of many Americans today. Today everyone hates banks, and the Occupy movements are one of the best examples of this discontent. Who would have thought that a small 2x3 rectangular debit card could cause hundreds of people to occupy Lubbock, Dallas, and even occupy Wall Street? Well, that is exactly what happened when some big banks started to charge a monthly $5 fee for debit cards. Now, let me ask you, how often do you use your debit card a week? 20, 25 times? Let's be honest. Most of us don't even write checks anymore. Some might say that it is all part of convenient service that the banks provide, and we should simply come to terms with the fact that in today's environment, nothing is free. We're going to pay a fee. Doesn't the consumer have a responsibility to be an educated customer as well? Well, of course they should. But that should be partnered with banks fully disclosing bank fees. Now, I have been a loyal customer to one bank for over 15 years. And my friends will tell you that I never ever have cash. My debit card is the only way I make purchases. For every purchase, no matter how small, I use my debit card. And I absolutely care if my bank is considering charging me a fee for my favorite bank product. So, how can we protect ourselves? It's simple, by educating ourselves. So today, I will provide you some facts to build that knowledge. I will also walk you through how one of the nation's largest banks battled negative perceptions. And lastly, let you decide if you think they are winning the battle or not. So let me start with a quick story. While on the streets of New York just a few weeks ago, I actually found myself walking behind a large group of young people. I was surprised to learn later that it was actually Occupy Wall Street. This huge group was so dissatisfied with banks, it was quite startling. This experience changed me forever. It forced me to not be a complacent customer and to not blame just one side for an issue. Since the start of the Occupy movement, almost 10% of Americans say they switched banks just last year, as quoted by Bloomberg. Wells Fargo has suffered greatly from the customers leaving, and the top reason customers have left have been bank fees. When banks announce new fees, public reaction can be quite volatile and result in customers voting with their feet, said a J.D. Power team member. Now, customers voting with their feet force Wells Fargo to reevaluate their customer fee disclosures. When people leave, banks will listen. And Wells Fargo lost customers in droves to credit unions, and they didn't want them to leave anymore. They did this by stopping the testing of their $3 debit card fee because of all the backlash, reported by the Los Angeles Times. Okay, it's not all bad news for Wells Fargo. They're continuing to grow as one of the only banks that are legitimately trying to really regain customer trust. They have established award-winning online programs focused on educating customers. And it really makes sense that they would lead the pack since they employ more than 270,000 team members. Wells Fargo serves 1 in 3 households in America. Wells Fargo's vision is to satisfy all customers' financial needs and help them succeed financially. And in fact, Wells Fargo's vision and values is customer-centric. But is it a little bit too late? Forbes says those are big promises, and can they actually deliver on them? It's not hard to convince you to feel ripped off as a customer. It's harder to convince you to feel empathy for the big bad banks. Now, here's a quote from Politico Online that swayed me the most to see Wells Fargo's point of view. They say, "It's disappointing and puzzling that the president would attack a private corporation, banks, for responding to a government price fixing that has fundamentally altered the economics of offering the debit card. As a direct result of the Durbin Amendment, consumers have started paying for financial services they previously enjoyed free of charge. Unfortunately, this proves that whenever government tries to control pricing of a product of services, consumers lose. This was not a bank-made policy. This was a government-made policy, and a lot of consumers were not aware of that." We can all agree that debit cards or any bank fee seems unfair. But to be blunt, Free is a word that has started to go the way of VHS tapes and cassette tapes. Banks, like any other type of business, can only stay open if they make a profit. But their profit, and we can all agree on this too, must be an honest one. And we can ensure we are receiving a fair shake by educating ourselves. Now, at the beginning of this talk, I said you would begin to see both sides of the complex world of bank fees. Armed with the understanding that we're accountable for our actions and will keep us from being feed to death. I leave you with 2 quotes to ponder which side you are on. Here's the first one. It's a quote from the famous German poet Bertolt Brecht in the 1800s. It is easier to rob someone by actually owning a bank than holding up a bank clerk. The other side. A quote by Herman Cain, a famous African-American businessman. Don't blame Wall Street. Don't blame the big banks. If you don't have a job and you're not rich, blame yourself. Which side are you on?